Kick it.
Welcome everybody to Splat Attack. I am your host, Alex, and we are having a special conversation with episode this season. This one I'm really excited about. I mean, I always get excited about doing these conversations anyway, but it was actually the conversation that I had with our amazing guest that actually started this whole thing. And I had been teasing this for a little while, and life happened, but thankfully we're able to make this finally come to fruition. I'm very excited about it. So today I am gonna be talking with Jennifer Cihi from Roundhouse. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Hi, Alex. I'm glad we're finally getting to accomplish our conversation about a myriad and cornucopia of things at this Thanksgiving time.
For those of you who don't know, we did an episode review on Roundhouse feminism earlier this year, and which was not in this season, it was our previous season, and we had invited Jennifer to be a part of it, and she was unable to, but she did say, give me a call, and I've got something that I'd like to talk with you about. And there were some things that was going on in pop culture that was pretty heavy at the time, and she said that she's got something that she really wants to talk about. We're going to get to that in this episode. So this
it's a surprise. It's a surprise. It's a secret.
So this whole series really started because of when you and I started talking. What was it, February, when we were talking about this?
I feel like it's been when did we do the 30-year reunion of Roundhouse?
That was
after that I think I might have contacted you about this.
Yeah, it was. We did that late last year. No, I think it was around.
It was at least a year ago.
It was at least a year ago. It was about this time last year when we were planning the feminism episode, and that's when I had reached out. I
could not do with you all. Yeah.
And it was right after that when you had checked your schedule and you found that you were doing cons at the time, and that's when you said to reach out and converse with you. So yeah, I think it was about February or March when we started talking about this. And
time goes so fast. Time is a thief, wow. Alex.
But and I had pitched this idea to Brett, who all of you know by now that he's no longer able to be a part of the podcast, but he'll be back. But this episode he was very excited to talk about, because a lot of what we're going to talk about is very near and dear to him as well. And some of the questions that we have for Jennifer are also from Brett, and I'll make sure to point those out. But just because we're all about 90s and pop culture, we're going to have to tie it in to some degree to some of the properties that you've been a part of. So of course. So of course
that's why we're all here, because of Nickelodeon.
That's right. So of course we got to start with Roundhouse.
Of course.
How did you get involved with Roundhouse?
Okay, so a lot of people don't know this story, except maybe some of the cast members and probably Rita and Sean Daywalt. So I lived in LA for, a couple years, and me and Sean Daywalt were friends and knew each other from doing like a theater vocal class, okay? And she had reached out to me and said, Jennifer, there's this project that I'm working on, and I think you should come audition for it. Now, this was Roundhouse, way early in the stages. They didn't have a deal with any network. They were kind of workshopping the show. So I was in a production of Me and My Girl from 1910 at the Grand Dinner Theater, which was an equity show. I was in the chorus of that. But I was contracted to finish out that show, which was probably like a 3-month run. So I went and auditioned for Roundhouse. I got the job, but I could not do it because I could not get out of my paying job. Roundhouse was not paying at that point. They were workshopping it. We knew it was going to be a cool situation and a cool project, but I couldn't leave what I was currently contracted for. So I was the original one that got offered the job to be the Crystal Lewis before Crystal Lewis.
Wow.
I'm pretty sure about this, and nothing against Crystal Lewis. Man, she's
Oh no,
awesome.
she's
I
killer.
love everybody that came before me. I had to turn it down. And to tell you the truth, I'm so pissed that I did. But when you're up and coming and trying to work your way and get jobs, you got to go where the money is. And I knew this
Yes.
was a really cool project. And Sean, I was so in love with Sean, and we were great friends. And I met Rita. I auditioned. My audition was great. I really wanted to do the project, but I couldn't. So I had to pass on it.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily, and so amazingly, it came back to me after Crystal had to leave, right? And then I got to come on the show. Now, hindsight 2020, maybe it was really meant to be that way. Maybe the universe wasn't meant for me to be there in the beginning, okay? And I'm just grateful that I was still a part of it. And what a life-changing experience it was to be on Roundhouse. It really was a bundle of fun. And, what an incredible cast and crew and tons of talent and lifelong friends I've made from that show.
It's awesome. That reminds me very because I'm a huge James Bond fan, and that's actually the very situation that happened with Pierce Brosnan when he was auditioning for the part of James Bond, and then he was doing Remington Steele at the time, and
he couldn't go and be James Bond,
he
right?
couldn't go.
I'm
Yeah.
sure that there's many actors that have this story that
Oh yeah.
probably could have been the person, and someone else got to create that role of
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that every major series like Friends or The Office or whatever, I'm sure that sometimes artists had to decline and
Yeah.
maybe their career would have gone on a different trajectory.
Yeah.
So I'm just grateful that it got to come back to me. I got to do the one season, and man, what an amazing show and so much fun and like dream come true.
Well, as I had mentioned earlier, Brett did submit some questions. One of the questions he submitted, the only one he had for the Roundhouse, was
Uh-huh.
what was the highlight episode of Roundhouse where you told yourself, "I love being here and doing this"?
I don't think it's one episode. I think the moment I stepped on that soundstage and got to be a part of that crew and cast that was already working, I was like, I've this is amazing. There's not one episode. Everything about the show, every art director, every costumer, Rita and Buddy, my friends that I knew from Sean, and then all the new friends I made. It was just every part of it, every single part of it. Doing a live, feed every Friday, getting my own parking space. I would drive into the lot of CBS Radford, and Seinfeld was behind me one time because the show Seinfeld was filming on like right next to us.
Wow.
So I thought, well, we have really made it. Like we're nobodies compared to Seinfeld, the TV show, right? And I have my own parking spot with my white Jetta. I'm like nobody, right? So I thought, well, geez, I've really made it if I've got my own parking spot. And there's Jerry Seinfeld in his Porsche. So every second of that experience was just amazing and wonderful and unique, and I've taken that experience with me in my whole career. 44 years I've been in the business now.
Wow.
Started out very young, age of 12 on Broadway and Annie, so I'm still going.
Who were you in Annie?
I played Pepper, the bratty one. Typecasting.
Oh man, my son's gonna love that.
I was very sassy, and they didn't even need to tell me to act because it just naturally flowed out of me. Molly Ringwald was in our cast.
Really?
Yeah, she wasn't Annie. She played was it Tessie? I forget which orphan she played now because it's so long ago.
Yeah.
And she was in our cast with us, and she was the one that really, really went on to do huge things, huge, amazing acting jobs. And what a thrill for her. And we're all proud of her. And we've all of us that were orphans have all either gone on to do other music or theater related things, or just done really cool jobs in life. So it was just all awesome.
So cool. Well, going into Roundhouse, because obviously you knew Sean prior to
Yeah.
being a part of the cast. What was it like joining the cast whenever they were already close?
Right. So I think I felt very at home and very natural. Crystal had left, and I had to kind of fill really big shoes with Crystal because
Yeah.
she's A, an incredible singer, B, everybody loved her, the fans loved her. And so I don't think I realized at the time that I should have been nervous. I was just like, let's do this. I think when you're young and you have a lot of confidence and you just are put in a situation, you just go for it. So looking back at it now, I just popped in there and, you know, I, acting was not my forte. Comedy, sketch comedy, I was good at, and singing. Give me a song that was, give me any song and I'll excel at that. But comedy, I was good at comedy and like that sketch comedy stuff. But that was the first time I had done something like that. So memorizing lines was nerve wracking to me. They had already been doing this, so they were like really on top of it. So maybe that was the little bit of the learning curve where I would feel nervous about, but they were so welcoming. And, since Sean knew me, and they welcomed me in, and everybody was so nice, and everybody was just super grateful to be there because it was the funnest job. You got paid to just act like a crazy loon. So, and the band was amazing. I mean, I can't say enough good things about it.
Did you hijack John Crane's chair?
You know what? I never was really into that chair. I always felt like it was going to run over my foot because I was one of the older cast members. This is funny, Alex. So I was one of the older cast members at like age 26 because we were supposed to be playing like, 15, 16, 17, 18-year olds, right?
Yeah.
Sean was about my age. Maybe Sean might be 1 year older than me. So I was like, don't hurt your foot because they're going to take you off for a week or put a cast on you. So I was like, let those young whippersnappers get in there. Like, John, like Mark David and
Mm.
Mickey Duran was so young. She was like a baby, little cute Mickey and, Natalie. And I was probably on the older end of it. But I wasn't old at that time. But looking back, we were supposed to be playing like high
Yeah,
school kids,
super young kids.
right?
Yeah.
So I definitely wasn't a high school kid. I mean, I looked young and youthful, but me and Sean were like the same age. And she played the mom, and I was supposed to be her daughter. So that's where the disconnect was, I think, for the fans and such, because I was kind of the same age, and I was definitely more mature in my how I carried myself.
Mm. Was is there a particular song that was your favorite to sing?
So I was thinking about that. So I like shared a lot of different songs. We sang a lot of duets together.
Mhm.
Sometimes she would sing the ending song on the season we both were on together, and sometimes I would sing the ending song. I was actually nominated for a ACE award, which was I think the MTV awards at that time,
Mhm.
because the show had gotten many nominations because it was so kind of ahead of itself back then for kids, right?
Mhm.
We already had In Living Color and Mad TV on, but nothing for kids like that.
Yeah.
So there was a song called I Still Believe. And I believe that's the one, I'm pretty sure, so long ago now, that I was nominated for ACE Award. And it's a ballady kind of mid-tempo, and I loved that song. But then there was a musical bumper called Down to the Bottom. I'm going down to the bottom. I'm going down to the bottom. Do you remember that one, Alex?
I do. And
So I think that was super fun to sing because it was really guttural and kind of chest voicey, and that band was so incredible. So I don't know, those two songs really stick out.
and yes, you are correct. When we did the 30th anniversary, I think this question also came up from another fan, and You're right, because you did mention that song, and we actually played a little clip of the song in our episode, and Benny had confirmed that yes, that was one that they got a nomination for.
Yeah, we did not win, which we were like, okay, we get it, but we were just so excited to be nominated. And I mean, being 20, I think I was like 28, 26 or 28 when I was on that show. And again, I did not realize, and I remember I was watching as we were getting ready to do this. I hadn't actually seen the episode that all of us did where
Hmm.
we were all came together, and you had posted it, or somebody had posted it, a
Hmm.
fan of mine, and said, Jen, I didn't even know you did this. I watched this. And so I was watching it, and Julene was talking about, we didn't realize how good, how good of a show this was. We were just doing a job and having so much fun. And that's really true. Julene was absolutely right about that. And I was thinking about, we didn't know, like, how amazing. We knew we had a great job. We were having an incredible time. We were around talented people, but we were not famous. We weren't like walking the red carpet. We were like a little show that was, like that little engine that could, right?
Hmm.
And the show really didn't get the kind of attention and mass appeal that it should have, in my opinion. And everybody probably thinks that too. So it is amazing that that show was just so amazing. It was so great and so well thought out. It was one of a kind, really.
Even to this day, it still doesn't get the recognition it deserves.
Yeah. And people, even with my Sailor Moon concerts and stuff that I do with all the Sailor Moon, we'll get to that, I know. When I say, hey, did anybody watch Roundhouse? I still have people going, yeah, 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 Roundhouse. But that's, there's less of those than there is the Sailor Moon. I mean, my
Mhm.
fan base for Sailor Moon is millions, right?
Mhm.
Because well, we'll talk about that.
Well, we'll just do a couple more questions for Roundhouse, and then we'll segue into it.
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
In
I'm sick and tired about Sailor Moon. I talk about Sailor Moon all the time. I miss Roundhouse. Let's go, Roundhouse.
uh, we had a fan submit a question asking if you could have danced in the show, what style would you have wanted to dance to?
Well, okay, that's an interesting question. I actually did a lot of dancing for
Hmm.
Disney, Universal Studios. I worked at Tokyo Disneyland. I actually took jazz, tap, and ballet and was quite a good dancer prior to being on Roundhouse, but I was not the kind of dancer like Mickey and Ivan doing that kind of like hip hoppy.
Hmm.
uh those people were so good at that and so much better. I'm like, just let me stick to singing, and they had already been slotted to be those dancers. So I wasn't going to try to compete with them, although I probably could have done some of that, some of those moves, those dance moves. But really, I'm a singer first that could dance very well, and and I was a good mover, and I did get hired as a dancer. But since I came in, you know, and they were already established as those dancers, because Mickey wasn't a singer necessarily.
Hmm.
She didn't sing lead, she sang background. So I wasn't going to step on what she excelled at so great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, don't be trying to sing my song. Just kidding. Totally kidding. Like, I would not ever want to compete with Mickey, and Natalie Nucci is amazing. Like, me and Sean didn't do any of the dancing. Amy didn't either, because they already had that kind of, they already were like the fly girls and boys. They already had that.
Yes. Yes.
So I surely was glad that they weren't asking me to do any dancing.
Well, we are right on time. We've got one more Roundhouse question, and then we'll segue
Okay.
into the next. And you had actually alluded to this just a little bit earlier. What is something that you took from your experience working on Roundhouse that you carried with you for the rest of your career, or potentially for the rest of your life?
Oh, that's a hard question. I think that number one, I love working in an ensemble. There's nothing like working with other people and connecting through music, acting, singing, dancing, whatever it is. There's nothing like Roundhouse was the most like theater that I could have done,
Hmm.
right? I grew up doing musical theater. That's what started my career back when I was 5, back in San Jose, California, San Jose Children's Musical Theater, which is still around today. 50 years has been uh, giving the world a lot of professional people. So uh, that camaraderie and working in a cast of multiple talented people and working off each other, that was, I think that was is what made it so special. And just the band, it was live, the live
Mhm.
band, everything about it was so unique. I've never done another project like that since, but I know I always have that to ponder and to have great memories of. And it was a great credit to have, because the show in LA was very known, and it was a great credit to have, and people know it and love it. And so I think I just took away that I was grateful to be a part of it, even if just for one season.
Awesome. And we're gonna segue into Sailor Moon because you're right. Roundhouse was once it was done,
It's kind
just
of done.
it was
Yeah.
done. Nickelodeon at the time used to re-air a lot of their shows, even after they've been canceled. They would still keep them on the air for a long time. Roundhouse, when it was done, they just stopped. And
Yeah, there's a whole story behind that too, but
there is, and we got into it a little bit
yeah,
at
we won't get into it tonight. It'll make us sad.
yeah. But if anyone's interested in that conversation, go check out the 30th anniversary that we did.
Correct, correct.
But still, whereas Sailor Moon, that got a lot of re-air time, and that was playing a lot on Cartoon Network at the time, which is where you
Well,
get
there
a
was
lot.
also multiple seasons.
Yes, there were. Yes, there were. And I had actually told you before we started the episode, when we did the 30th anniversary, that my wife lost her mind because I mean she was there with I introduced her to Roundhouse.
Yeah.
She never saw it as a kid, and she thought this was really cool. And I had a couple of my theater friends over, and we were watching Roundhouse. We did a whole block of Snick, and we watched Ren and Stimpy, and they were laughing. And then we watched Clarissa, they were laughing. Then we got to
Yeah.
Roundhouse, and they were all glued because I've got a living room full of theater people, and they're all
Yeah.
just enamored with
Yeah, and it's like theater on
everything.
TV.
And
Exactly.
and they were going, how have I never heard of this show before? And they
I
couldn't get
know.
over the dance, they couldn't get over the singing. The whole thing just really
So
worked.
good.
And one of them yelled, Disney wished they had talent like this, which I
Yeah.
thought was brilliant. But
That's funny.
but the same group of people, once I told them that I was going to be talking with the lady who did the singing voice for Sailor Moon, my wife lost her mind at that point. And then whenever I got excited and I had shared to some of my friends, I'm going to get to talk to again, I've phrased it the same way. The singing voice for Sailor Moon and Tamara overall. She had actually commented, "Oh my God, I love Jennifer Cihi." I was like, "Oh, okay, you know exactly who I'm talking about." Because she's been
Is it
following you.
because she's a Sailor Moon fan first and foremost,
She was
right?
a
Yeah.
Sailor Moon fan first, and she follows you on Facebook, and she's been a big fan too. I don't know if she's met you at a con. She may have. I don't know, but Sailor Moon, like you said, that it's huge.
Yeah.
How did you get involved in providing the singing voice for Sailor Moon?
It's almost kind of like by accident, Alex. Around the same time that I was doing Roundhouse, and I still can't even remember kind of which came first, because all my big jobs kind of happened in the time of a 3-year period, and some of them overlapped. Because when I was filming Roundhouse, we would, I had an agent, so I would still get sent out for different things. Like, I did a bunch of big jingles too, and we'll talk about that. But excuse me, my agent sent me out for this animated singing voice from Japan. And I was like, okay, what's that? I had lived in Japan in the mid 80s working for Tokyo Disneyland, but I didn't remember seeing any Sailor Moon. It was more like Speed Racer and Hello Kitty, because Sailor
Yeah.
Moon is very specific. The red, white, and blue outfit, the long blonde hair with the pigtails. I would have remembered that. when we lived in Japan, we thought that their cartoons was weird and odd. The weird big eyes, the squeaky voices, all this. We were like, this is horrible. We thought it was horrible, their cartoons, because we loved Looney Tunes and Scooby Doo and Grape Ape, and that's what we were watching. So I just went on an open call that my agent sent me on, and I got the job. So Sailor Moon was going to be the first anime they were trying in the US. They were just going to see if anime would be received by the American US audience. So they hadn't even voiced it yet with the voiceovers, with the speaking part. They knew that they wanted to have music for the show. I met up with the writers and the producers, spent multiple days in the studio. I got paid, it was non-union, so I kind of got paid a flat rate, which seemed good at the time. Not so good at the time, because I had no idea that it was going to be such a huge success. I would have negotiated more dough. But that's what happens when you're young and trying to work up the ranks and get jobs. When they say you're going to get paid X, Y, and Z for a month's worth of work or 2 weeks worth of work, that sounded pretty good, right? And I seriously had no idea. I'm like, well, this is going to go nowhere. This is weird and freaky. These screeching voices, And again, we didn't know if anime was going to be received positively in the US market. Well, boy, was I wrong, and I'm thankful that I am, because 100 conventions later that I have recently done for Sailor Moon, it has kind of rebooted my career. I have over 1 million fan base, maybe 2 or 3 million fan base now. Sailor Moon is known by everybody. You can go into Walmart, Hobby Lobby, Target, and there's Sailor Moon everywhere. 10 years ago, when I found out about that that I could be doing these conventions and that I could, be reconnected with the series, I had no clue that I had kind of become famous. I had no clue. So I'm grateful. And on the back end, I'm doing quite well with it. But I'm not like a millionaire or anything. I'm laughing that my Wikipedia says, someone says Jennifer Cihi's net worth is $10 million. I'm like, really? Where's the 10 mil? That goes to show you all that stuff's completely wrong.
Okay, well, we don't really have a whole lot of time left. I loved every bit of that, but I do want to make sure that I get to Brett's question, and then we'll move on to what we really want to talk about.
For sure.
But his question was, what do you enjoy most about singing for Sailor Moon? And conversely, what did you find most difficult about the role?
Well, I didn't find anything difficult about the role because because I just had to sing some songs, and that's my forte. What I like, doing the actual project is quite boring story, actually. Went in the studio. It was someone's home studio. I sang in their converted closet as a studio, as like a vocal booth. We did the songs. There was a second album that came out. They hired a different producer, which was kind of this famous producer at the time. And we did that. That all is kind of a blur because that's so long ago. Mm-hmm. What I love most about it now is getting to reboot myself as an artist, come back to the project. I mean, I'm their Katy Perry. It's crazy. They cry when they meet me. They stand in line for my autograph, and I'm humbled and amazed that they love and enjoy these songs from 30 years ago so much. So cool. At 50 something now of my career, being in the business 44 years, when I thought I was going to be phasing myself out, sort of, the entertainment industry is not kind to aging white older females. That's changing, but thank God. But I rebooted my career completely for the 5th time, and it's all because the fan base of Sailor Moon is so in love with those songs.
That's awesome.
So um, it's wild, and I'm so grateful.
Okay, so when we had alluded to this much earlier when we first started talking, but when you had approached me with this beautiful idea, this is going to take a hard left turn. But at the time in pop culture, Jason David Frank, who was the most famously known to be the Green Ranger on Power Rangers, and also the DJ on the Ellen DeGeneres show, they both had committed
Oh,
suicide.
yes, yes.
And now the reason that we're doing this at this part of the year is because the holidays are often very, very difficult for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you had actually told me that mental health awareness is something that is very, very something you are incredibly passionate about, and
Yes.
that you also have a very deep, meaningful story that coincides with all this. So
Right, right.
I'm going to take a step back and I'm just going to let you share your story.
Okay, so it's interesting. Uh, let's see. When I lived in LA, I did not have any mental dis-ease that I could put a put a name tag on.
Mm,
Why I think I was very successful in the music business is because I had a mental disease. Because so I am bipolar, and bipolar people often have so much energy and so much confidence and so much talent that it actually works very positively for them. Okay. Now, the longer it becomes undiagnosed and untreated, that's when things can go horribly, horribly south. And looking back now in my 20s and early 30s, I can see where I could notice little things that I was doing that I'm like, okay, that makes sense. But it wasn't until maybe my early to mid 30s that I started having like seasonal depression. And I was like, that's weird. What, okay, I just every summer I would kind of feel blue, and didn't think much of it because it would just go away after the summer. Was actually, it was weird that it was during the summer, not the winter. Usually during the winter months in the dark
yeah.
and the rain, but California's so sunny all the time. I was kind of the opposite of that. I wasn't the seasonal depression on the winter, it was the summers. So as I started to get older, and I noticed, okay, I'm really having this issue getting depressed for a few months out of the year. So long story short, it got worse and worse and worse. And I started spending more time in the depression down energy than I did in the up. And of course, being bipolar, you have extreme highs and lows. And I'm not ashamed to say this, but bipolar disorder is really hard and can be very devastating. And a lot of people have horrible experiences, but it also can, in the entertainment business, I can name you 10 celebrities
Mm,
that had it too, if I needed to right now. And most of them are comedians, and most of them are not on
mm,
the planet anymore.
mhm,
So I felt like it was a DNA that I was born with, and I advocated for myself, and I wouldn't give up on myself, and I kept trying to figure out what it was because I didn't figure out right away that name tag. Okay, I just thought I was depressed. Then my mom and dad were like, well, you have a stressful job, and let's support you. And I went to doctors and this and everything, all the way around. Moved to Nashville, Tennessee, in my mid 30s. And for some reason, moving to Nashville, because I was untreated and undiagnosed, it got incredibly worse. And some other really horrible things happened to me. And that's when I was like, well, whoa, I almost kind of lost my life, actually.
mm,
Thankfully, I had great support, great friends, great family, great parents that really guided me through, and I didn't give up on myself. So I had a friend tell me, I had a really good girlfriend, that really helped me get through this. It was probably the worst time was probably lasted about 10 years, on and up and down and all around. I'd be on one medication and I'd feel good for a while. Then I'd go crazy and end up not being well. And then I'd take a medicine and it would, I got a DUI. And I want to tell people this because I was so ashamed that that happened. But this happens daily to people. And I want people to know they can get out of this. Because when I was in it, the guilt and shame of just that was horrific. Nowadays, with big celebrities coming out, me getting a DUI is nothing to what Demi Lovato went through. Okay, she almost OD'd a few times. She has a whole documentary about it. All these different celebrities are coming out. I'm not a celebrity like that. I'm a little baby celebrity compared to that. My voice isn't big enough to help the masses, but what I'm passionate and so wanting to have the conversation is that I know people that couldn't get it together.
Mm-hmm.
I was so low and not suicidal, but no hope. I could have been dead a couple different times, but I wasn't. And I'm thriving and doing great now because I didn't give up on myself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the message. That's what I want to talk about. I think that the stigma of mental health, I think people are so afraid to name it. That is changing, even in the last year since we've been talking about this, Alex. I think celebrities are coming to the forefront and helping that. And I'm so grateful to see that. But it's really sucks when you're depressed, and it sucks when you have a diagnosis, and it sucks when you some people want to name it something else. Some people say, well, I'm an alcoholic. That's more acceptable to be an alcoholic than to say you have mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are so afraid, and the world looks at mental health as very scary, because yes, schizophrenia can be very scary. Bipolar disorder can be very scary, but there's medication for all of this. There's help for all of this. And I'm thriving and doing amazing. So I want people to know and to feel that they can get better. And having a diagnosis doesn't mean you're done in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. That's very, very much. I understand that there are, and this is all just pure understanding because I don't have these problems, but which is
Good. I'm glad you don't.
which is why I really want to have somebody who has had experience in this, so that way it's not just yes, I understand, but then we have somebody who says yes, I can relate, which is a whole different situation because yes, I understand that there's a lot of stigma around mental health awareness and things like
Or
that.
just a diagnosis.
Yes, and they're afraid of, well, what if I go see a doctor and I find out that I have a problem?
Right.
You already have a problem, dear. You're addressing
Yeah.
it. You've got all these symptoms that
You're
you
not
are
doing
doing to
yourself
yourself.
yeah. You're not doing yourself a favor in being
Yes.
in denial of it, which multiple, men especially have a hard time accepting that if they have a diagnosis, because the
Mhm.
society tells us, men aren't supposed to feel, they're not supposed to be emotional. Women are supposed to be the more,
Mhm.
mothering and nurturing. So yeah.
Yeah, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with going to a doctor and getting yourself checked out. And it doesn't matter if it's a doctor who checks on your physical health or a therapist or someone to help you figure out why are you feeling the way you're feeling, what to do. What was
You
you gonna say?
actually need all three. You need all
Hmm.
three of them. You need your primary care,
Hmm.
you need a therapist, and you need a psychiatrist. You need
Hmm.
all three of those. And then the support of your friends and family. That's
Yes.
the only way you're going to be well. And a lot of people don't know that. I could give you
Hmm.
a recipe for it.
And there's nothing bad about finding out what's wrong with you. Not necessarily what's wrong with you, but finding out what it is that is going on with you. Let's face it that
Right.
way. So that
Right.
way you can get the treatment that you need to have so you can improve your outlook on things.
Let me put it this way. If you had cancer or diabetes, you would go take insulin, or you
Mhm.
would go to a doctor and have radiation or chemo. Why is that so accepted? And there's no shame around that. But you
Mhm.
tell someone they have a mental illness and, oh, they don't talk to them. They're scary. They're going to do something wrong.
Mhm. And like you said, there's beginning to become more of an awareness for it, not just with celebrities coming out, but also jobs are starting to recognize this now, and some schools are starting to recognize this now.
Which is awesome. I'm so happy and pleased about this.
And if there are jobs, if you have one of those jobs where your boss does not recognize it, doesn't understand it,
Yeah.
go. Please go. You don't need that in your life.
Right.
Surround yourself as much as you can. I know that's not always the answer, depending on people's situations, but still, something has to be done.
Well, the spectrum of mental health diagnosis used to be five,
Mhm.
like bipolar, depression, schizophrenia, autism, not autism. There's five main components. Now, autism and the spectrum is all become sort of one umbrella.
Mhm.
Even alcoholism, and they're saying even eating disorders and transgender, like that's all kind of under the same umbrella, which I think is interesting and great at the same time. Because guess what? Why can't we all support each other?
Yes.
These are all things we may have been born with, or situations that happen to us. Let's commune together and help each other get through it.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be scary. Unfortunately, the news will show us something. Oh, they had mental health and they went crazy and stabbed their person. Yeah, how many 48 hours and 60 minutes have we seen with that scenario? Because that person was not getting help for themselves. And it is scary because people think, oh my gosh, post-traumatic, PSTD, right? So post-traumatic stress disorder from being in the military or the service. I mean, I could go on and name. The umbrella is like 1,000 titles now. It used to be the five main mental diseases.
Yeah.
It's very different scope now. And I'm glad that even alcoholism, they're saying, you know, most often someone who has a mental health disorder has a dual diagnosis of addiction or gambling problems, sex addiction, eating disorder, whatever. There's never just one thing. They often, to handle and to help deal with their mental health issues, they go to something else.
Mhm.
That's when it becomes very problematic. And that's why people commit suicide.
Mhm.
They, you know, die in a drug induced situation like a DUI, and they kill other people, or they kill themselves, or I mean, it's just, the list can go on. And
Yeah.
that's why I'm so passionate about it. Because if I got through it, and if I can do it, I know that there is hope for other people
Mhm.
that can do it too. Because some people feel hopeless,
Yes.
and they may not have the support that I did. They
Mhm.
may not have parents that were well. They may not have friends. They may not have any parents at all. And so then guess what happens? They die or overdose or just are homeless. And then they're out there crazy on the side of the road talking to themselves.
Yeah.
We've all seen those people.
Mhm. And I know that this is for all of you Slimesters who are listening. This is very, very different type of conversations that we've ever had on the show before. Because usually we talk very light and fun, and we like to enjoy the nostalgia. And every once in a while, we would dip a toe into something that's very deep and meaningful. But this particular instance, being this very, very sincere and really deep type conversation, the reason we're bringing this up is one, because of an experience that you have had, but also it's Thanksgiving, or by the time this episode will release, it'll be just after Thanksgiving and between Christmas. And I know that there are people out there probably listening to this episode who are experiencing depression in some form. And just from your experience with the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that you've met doing conventions, how often do you hear someone confess to you that they've been struggling in some capacity with depression?
Every single time. Every single time I go to these conventions, I hear people either being on the spectrum and battling different things, and or the Sailor Moon or just anime in general helps them with their mental health dis-ease
Mm-hmm.
because they found a community, other people like-minded to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's, it used to be back in the day that conventions were like kind of the dorks of the world, right? The geeks of the world. But now geek is chic and cool. To be the star football player and the blonde, beautiful cheerleader isn't as cool as it used to be, maybe even 5 years ago. Being the brainiac that can do an amazing things on a computer and cosplays and something really cool, that's cool now. And I love that we are giving the underdogs of the world a place and a time to sparkle like a diamond. That's what
Mm-hmm.
I love about doing these conventions. It's beautiful to see.
Well, for those who are listening and know somebody who is struggling in some capacity that we've addressed, what advice would you give to them on how to look after somebody who is struggling with mental dis-ease?
Okay, so I'm going to give a few little nuggets of information. There is an organization called NAMI, NAMI. It's US wide. It's in every major city, National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. They offer amazing free classes, and it's like AA for mental health. And they are just a bevy and a loving community. I've been involved in NAMI for multiple years. I did a huge benefit for them last year, a kind of a Sailor Moon fundraiser, and we raised money for NAMI for the Tennessee sector. There's also the 1-800 numbers that you can call, and you can Google that. I'm not gonna, we can put that maybe up on the screen later, Alex.
I will absolutely have links to all these in the
Yeah, because
description for the
at
episode.
this time in the holidays, people need to know that there is help out there.
Mhm.
Also, it is very key and important to not keep this to yourself.
Mhm.
Most people don't feel comfortable talking about anything that's negative in their body.
Yeah.
I had great parents and friends, and I was very open about my struggle. Some people, and it's really sad to me, I've learned recently that some parents that had their kids have committed suicide, parents had no idea that the
Mhm.
kids were feeling any one iota of depression or anything.
Yeah.
And what is sad to me is the kids, or and it has nothing to do with what the parents did right or wrong. I think there's just so much shame around it, and people don't feel like, whether, I mean, even if you go to, if you're at school and you talk to a teacher or a counselor, talk about it. There's so many resources now, and even in schools they have a therapist. A lot of schools now, they have like not a counselor but like a certified therapist that'll talk through like bullying, or it trickles down to many other things. But I think talking about it, there is an amazing resource of things that can help you out of that darkness. The problem is people get down so dark they don't even have the energy to climb one step on the ladder to ask for help because they've waited so long to have any conversation. And that's what hurts my heart so much. So many kids are committing suicide. There's so many problems in school. All these people that are shooting at schools, all of those people had mental health issues after they've interviewed the families. And most of them had some mental disease that was undiagnosed or untreated. That's the number one nucleus of the problem. It was untreated. They didn't have the resources, they didn't have the support, they didn't have the parents or whatever. Even if you go to one teacher at your school, because it starts young, it's, you can get a handle on it 16 through 19 if you're okay to talk about it. I didn't even have any real problems till in my 30s, but I could track back now, looking back in my life, that I did have problems. But thank God I came through it on a positive side.
Yeah, this definitely something that you and I had actually discussed a little bit. If you don't talk about it, nothing will get done about it. There is no shame in just talking about it. Start somewhere, start small. And I don't care if it's with a friend or with a family
Your
member.
church, someone at your church or your school, whatever, right?
Yeah, start with someone that you trust and just let them know I'm having some problems.
Yeah,
And if someone comes to you and is letting you know I'm having
right.
a hard time right now, listen to
Yeah.
them and be there for them and encourage them. And like I said, I'm going to put every one of those. I'm going to put NAMI and I'm going to see if I.
NAMI's an amazing, amazing organization. There's other ones like that, but that's
Mhm.
the one that I is near and dear to me. But of course, there's a national hotline for depression
Yes.
and or suicide, and we'll put that up on the
Yes, I'm absolutely
right.
going to add that in the description. So please utilize that as a tool. And I'm even going to open it up here for me. We've begun to develop something of a community with other podcasters and also with the people who've been listening. If you guys are struggling with something and you don't have anybody to talk to, send me an email. I'll be happy to listen to you. Uh, you need we need people. We need a community of
Support.
people
You need
who,
support.
yes, absolutely, absolutely,
It also helps to hear people's stories that have
yes,
been on the ground and at the worst possible scenario, but they made it through. So I'm gonna go another step. My sister, who I've told you about, Alex,
yes.
my sister, who's a couple years older than me, we both share the same mental health issues. She could not pull it together. And
Mhm.
2 years ago, she derailed her life and uh, just couldn't pull it together with the mental health. She had a dual diagnosis of alcoholism as well. And we found her pretty close to death 2 Septembers ago. And the last 2 years, me and my other sister has spent uh, putting her in a nursing home. And her life is horribly, horribly different, and her quality of life will never be the same. And she has brain damage, and she lives in a nursing home at 63 years old because the world was too big for her. She couldn't stay on the medication. She didn't want to stay in therapy, and she ruined her life. And that is so sad and devastating to me.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because I see her and I think I'm her baby sister, and
Mhm.
we had a similar diagnosis, and I pulled it together. And I kept thinking, well, she was doing well, she can pull it together too. So it's interesting, in the same family, one is thriving and one is
Not.
not. So what was the disconnect there? What could I have done differently? What could my parents have done differently? Really nothing. It's up to the person of the
Yeah.
diagnosis to stay on track. I stayed on track with the right medicine, the right milligrams, the right doctors. Did I go off track? Heck yes. And I'll admit it every time. Do I still have to work hard on keeping my mental health in check? 1000%. Does it
Mhm.
get easier now because I've been well? Yes. And now I'm a huge advocate and I help tons of other people. And that's my passion project. And
Mhm.
music is part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, like anything, it takes work, and
Yes,
everything takes work. If it's
yes.
in a relationship, you want to have a relationship with a person, you have to put work into it. You want to be successful in anything, whether it be a business or a personal project, you have to put work into it. And if you are struggling in some form with, as we've been phrasing it, mental dis-ease, you have to put work into it. If you do nothing but stand there and become complacent, it is a dangerous place to be. A, a step
And,
forward, no matter how
and most
small, is a
likely,
step
yes,
forward.
most likely you'll lose your life.
Yes.
Whether you lose it, meaning you pass away and die, or you're in life and you're a zombie because you're not well.
Hmm.
So you lose either way.
Yeah. So,
So that's what we're trying to bring awareness to, trying to help people understand that they can get help, they can be well. Some
mhm,
people have no hope, and that is it. Not having hope is a huge problem.
yes.
And so I'm here to say, hey, if I did it and I could do it, I know that other people can too.
Yes. So, for this holiday season, all of you who are listening, if you have family, fantastic. You have friends and loved ones that want to be there with you and encourage you, support you, fantastic. Be with them. If you are struggling, talk to somebody. And if
Yeah.
we've got tools that are in the description, use them if you need to. And if you have no one and you need someone to talk with, Splat Attack is here, honestly. So thank you, all of you, for listening and for, I don't want to say enduring, but I would say opening your mind to something that we don't normally address on the show, but is something that both Brett and myself, and
Very
honestly, Jennifer,
necessary. It's
yes,
very necessary.
yes.
And it doesn't have to be so scary.
No, it's serious. We take this very
Yeah.
sincerely, but it's not
Yeah.
scary. So
So
if
I'm
you
gonna leave you with something,
go
Alex.
for it,
Whenever my life gets me so down, I know I can go down to where the music and the fun never ends. As long as the music keeps playing, you know what I'm saying. I know that I can find a friend down at the Roundhouse.
yes, I love it so much. I can't not smile every time I hear that song. I absolutely love it so much.
We have to end the show on a positive note.
Yes, yes,
And we have
absolutely.
to say music is healing, music is amazing. This was a hard conversation, but guess what? We're here to help,
Mhm.
and I'm here to help. I want you to also put in the comments, or when you put up all the stuff,
Sure.
you can give out my information, my email. I'm such an advocate. I don't, if someone needs to reach out to me because they feel a connection with me, I absolutely want that to happen.
And I do want to say also, because I told you this, but for those of you who are listening also, because you had alluded to earlier that you are a baby celebrity compared to the ones who are coming out and doing wonderful, wonderful things. The one thing that I love about this community that we're building is, and especially with the actors that we're establishing connection with,
Yeah.
there is a lot of personable people out there, and that is
Yeah.
what makes you so special. Is even though you aren't, say, Katy Perry level or Lady Gaga level, they're too busy. They are swamped with hordes and hordes and hordes of people,
Right.
whereas you have the opportunity to get on the ground floor and meet fans face to face and hug and support and be there for them, which is what they
Yeah.
need. And
Yeah.
I absolutely adore that about you. So thank you so much for helping as many people as you have, and for any future people that will end up helping with through this adventure together. So thank
It
you.
is my pleasure, and I'm passionate about it. And maybe there is more conversation to come, Alex.
Mhm. this isn't the end of the conversation. It's just a part of it.
Yeah.
So if all of you are listening, you want to carry the conversation on, please do. The more we talk about this, the easier it will be to open up and talk about
Right.
these things.
Right.
So
So
thank you.
thank you for having me.
Thank you.
What a beautiful conversation. Have a wonderful holiday. And just remember, guys, act out of love, not fear.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jennifer. As for
Bye, Alex.
the rest of you guys, splat you later.
Bye. This weird? Is this weird? Oh yeah, that's weird.
Yeah.
Oh no, the devil. The devil made me do it, Alex. Oh look, rainbow bright, crossing the rainbow bridge. Okay, let's not do that. Oh, too bright. Ay. This is a new ring light that I've gotten. It's a small one, which is cool. And I'm the first time using it. I'm glad okay, wait, let's go down. I want it the background. Why does it look so dark in the back? I don't want to look like I'm in a cave. That looks weird.